Just because it's choosing you does not mean it's for you. Just because it wants your time does not mean it deserves your energy. Just because it sees your value does not mean it's aligned with your purpose. And oftentimes, that's the trap. You see, a lot of people confuse being noticed with being called, being wanted with being well placed, attention with alignment. And today, we're talking about how to stop confusing attention with alignment. All right, welcome back to Movement According to Purpose, the podcast where we align our lives, our decisions, and our leadership with purpose. I'm your host, Q, and today we're talking about one of the easiest ways to drift away from yourself: mistaking access, attraction, or attention for assignment. If any one of you out there mistaken access, attraction, or attention for assignment, that's all right. We're going to get into that today. You see, because not everything that chooses you is meant to keep you. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every relationship is assigned. Not every invitation deserves your yes. And if you've ever mistaken being wanted for being well placed, if you've ever confused chemistry for clarity, if you've ever said yes because it felt so good, so good to be chosen, this episode is for you. And today, we're going to break it down into three things here: why attention can feel like validation, how misalignment often looks attractive at first, and how to discern what is pulling at you versus what is actually aligned for you. And by the end of this episode, you'll stop treating attention like confirmation and start asking better questions before you say yes. All right, family, let's start here. Attention is not the problem, but it is easy to misinterpret because attention feels good. It feels affirming. It feels validating. It feels like evidence that you matter, that you're seen, that something in you is valuable enough to be noticed. And sometimes that feeling gets confused with confirmation. And that's where people drift. They think, if it's opening to me, it must be for me. If they want me, it must be right. If I'm being noticed, this must be alignment. Not necessarily. Being noticed means someone saw value. That does not mean it saw value in a way that honors your purpose. Everything that pulls on your gifts is not aligned with your growth. Some things are drawn to your access, some to your energy, some to your talent, some to what you can provide. That does not automatically make them aligned. Attention can identify value, but it cannot determine fit. That is your job. And many people lose themselves because they let being chosen answer a question that should have required discernment. Being wanted is not the same as being well placed. I got a question for y'all. Where have you been treating attention like confirmation, instead of pausing long enough to ask if it actually fits? That question protects a lot. Because once you stop assuming attention means alignment, you start noticing how often misalignment arrives looking attractive. All right. This is where discernment gets tested in this whole misalignment piece. Because misalignment rarely introduces itself as obviously wrong. It just doesn't show up saying, hey, this is wrong. Usually it looks appealing. It looks exciting. promising, flattering, convenient. Sometimes it looks like chemistry. Sometimes opportunity. Sometimes momentum. And that's what makes it easy to confuse. Misalignment often shows up wrapped in appeal. That's why people say yes too quickly. Not because it was right, but because it was attractive. It looked like what they wanted. It sounded like what they hoped for. It offered some version of what they've been craving. But attractive and aligned are not the same thing. I want y'all to understand something, family. I'm not telling you anything that I haven't been through myself. I've been in this position far too many times and I can count. All right. And so I want you to know that this misalignment piece, it's important to recognize that we all go through it. And we need to recognize also that something can be exciting and still disruptive. It can be flattering and still draining. It can be familiar and still unhealthy. It can be available and still misaligned. That's why discernment requires more than attraction. It requires interrogation. Not just, do I like this? Does this feel good? Does this want me? But does this fit what I'm building? Does this require me to abandon myself to keep it? Does this align with who I'm becoming? That last question, that's one you have to ask yourself repeatedly. Does this align with who I'm becoming? It's important that you ask that because where you're going is important. And if whatever is attracting you is not willing to go or grow with you where you're going, you've got some thinking to do. And those are better questions because a lot of what looks good in the moment costs too much in the long run. Can I repeat that for y'all? A lot of what looks good in the moment can cost too much in the long run. I got another question for y'all. Because I want you to think about this. What have you said yes to because it was attractive and not because it was aligned? The answer will tell you where discernment needs to grow. And once you stop letting attraction make the decision, you can start learning how alignment actually feels. All right, y'all, we're getting into it. But here's what most people miss. Alignment is usually quieter than attention. Alignment is less performative, less urgent, less intoxicating. And because it is quieter, many people overlook it. You see, attention is loud. It rushes. It flatters. It pulls. Alignment is different. It steadies. It clarifies. It leaves room for truth. Attention often creates urgency. Alignment creates peace. Attention says, say yes now. Alignment says, look closer. That's the difference. One pulls on your ego, the other settles your spirit. And I'm going to take y'all through some steps on how to deal with this misalignment piece. Step 1, slow the pace. Anything worth keeping can survive a pause. That's a word, right? Anything worth keeping can survive a pause. Step 2, ask better questions. Don't ask, does this want me? But ask, does this fit me? Step 3, and I can't stress this enough, y'all. Watch what it costs your nervous system. What requires constant overthinking, over-explaining, or self-abandonment is usually not alignment. Step 4, choose what brings clarity, not just stimulation. Not everything exciting is right. Not everything quiet is wrong. Sometimes alignment is less exciting at first because it is not fighting your discernment. Peace is not boring. It is often the first sign of fit. I'm going to repeat that. Peace is not boring. It is often the first sign of fit. All right, so let's bring this home, family. Not everything that sees your value is aligned with your purpose, and that's okay. And if you do not learn the difference, you will keep saying yes to what notices you instead of what nourishes you. I want you to remember this. Attention can identify value, but it cannot determine fit. Only you can do that. Misalignment often arrives looking attractive, and alignment is usually quieter than attention. You do not need to say yes just because something chose you. You need to ask whether it aligns with who you are becoming. That is discernment. And here's our call to action. If this episode sharpened something in you, I want you to share with someone learning how to choose alignment over attention. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, send this to someone learning that being chosen is not being the same as being well placed. And this week, here's your homework. Ask yourself, what in my life has my attention, but not my alignment? Start there. Because the next episode, we're going to be talking about how to stop abandoning yourself to keep the peace. And if keeping things calm has been costing you your truth, that conversation is for you. This is Movement According to Purpose, where we just don't talk about purpose, we live it. I'm your host, Q. As always, it's been a pleasure. Much love, peace, and blessings. Until next time, y'all.